Welcome, everyone, to our educational session on understanding the fundamental concepts of behavior analysis, respondent, and operant behavior. Today, we'll dive into these two types of behaviors that are essential for anyone studying psychology, education, or behavior analysis to grasp. We'll explore respondent behavior, which involves involuntary, reflexive responses triggered by stimuli, and compare it with operant behavior, which is shaped by the consequences that follow the actions. Through examples and interactive discussions, you'll learn how these behaviors are formed, how they differ, and their implications in real-life situations. Get ready to deepen your understanding of how and why we behave the way we do in various contexts. Respondent behavior refers to involuntary, reflexive actions that are automatically elicited by specific stimuli. These behaviors are not learned through consequences, but are innate or become conditioned through association with other stimuli. Let's look at some examples of respondent behavior. Salivating at the smell of food. An example of respondent behavior is salivating when you smell food cooking. This reflexive response does not require learning. It's an automatic physiological reaction to the smell of food, which acts as a stimulus. Jumping at a loud sound, jumping or flinching in response to a sudden, loud noise is another example. This reaction is not something you decide to do, it happens automatically as a protective reflex. Now, operant behavior involves voluntary actions that are controlled by their consequences. Unlike respondent behaviors, operant behaviors are learned and are likely to occur again if they are reinforced. Here is examples of operant behavior. Studying for good grades. A student decides to study hard for their exams after receiving high marks on previous tests, reinforced by praise from parents and teachers. The studying behavior is voluntary and is influenced by the positive consequences, good grades, and praise that follow. Avoiding junk food for health. An individual chooses to avoid eating junk food and sees an improvement in their health, such as weight loss or better energy levels. This decision and action are examples of operant behavior, where the behavior avoiding junk food is influenced by its consequences, improved health. What is key difference between respondent and operant behavior? Source of the behavior. Respondent behaviors are automatic responses elicited by specific stimuli and are not influenced by the consequences of the behavior. They can be innate or developed through respondent conditioning, classical conditioning. Operant behaviors are voluntary actions that are influenced by the consequences that follow them, developed through operant conditioning. Learning from the outcomes of actions. Control by stimuli versus consequences. Respondent behaviors are directly controlled by antecedent stimuli. Example, the smell of food or a loud noise. Operant behaviors are controlled by their consequences. Example, rewards or punishments that follow the behavior, which determine the likelihood of the behavior being repeated. What's the difference between respondent behavior and respondent conditioning? Respondent behavior refers to involuntary, reflexive actions that are automatically elicited by specific stimuli. These reactions are innate or become conditioned responses through the process of respondent conditioning, also known as classical conditioning. Respondent conditioning or classical conditioning is the learning process by which neutral stimuli become associated with an unconditioned stimulus, leading to a conditioned response. Through repeated pairings, a previously neutral stimulus can elicit a response similar to the unconditioned response. Respondent behavior is about the automatic, reflexive actions themselves, which can be innate, like blinking in response to air puff, or learned through conditioning, like salivating when hearing a bell if you're one of Pavlov's dogs. It focuses on the behavior elicited by stimuli. Respondent conditioning is the process through which behaviors become conditioned responses. It involves the learning mechanism that enables a neutral stimulus to evoke a particular response after being paired with an unconditioned stimulus. It's about how the association between stimuli and responses is formed and strengthened over time. Let's look with example about hearing a favorite song to compare respondent behavior and respondent conditioning. Imagine you hear your favorite song playing. Automatically, without any prior learning associated with this specific song, you feel a surge of happiness and perhaps even start tapping your foot or nodding your head. This reaction occurs because the song is pleasurable to you. Stimulus, and your response happiness. Foot tapping is immediate and reflexive. Initially, a particular song was just another track you heard occasionally. However, you started listening to it during a series of very happy events in your life, like celebrations with friends or a significant personal achievement. Over time, this song, which was once a neutral stimulus, becomes associated with feelings of joy and excitement, unconditioned stimuli, due to the repeated pairing. Now, hearing this song alone, conditioned stimulus automatically elicits feelings of happiness, conditioned response. Even if you're not currently at a celebration or experiencing a personal achievement. In the respondent behavior example, the automatic happiness and movement upon hearing a favorite song demonstrate innate or reflexive reactions to stimuli that are inherently pleasurable or stimulating. There's no learning process detailed here, it's about the immediate, unlearned response to the song. In the respondent conditioning example, the song initially doesn't elicit a strong emotional reaction. However, through repeated associations with happy events, a learning process, the song itself becomes capable of eliciting happiness. This illustrates respondent conditioning, where the song transforms from a neutral stimulus to a conditioned stimulus, capable of evoking a conditioned response due to its association with positive experiences. Key difference highlighted. The key difference lies in the presence, conditioning example or absence behavior example of a learning process that leads to the establishment or modification of the reflexive response. Respondent behavior focuses on the reflexive action itself, while respondent conditioning explains how such behaviors can be acquired or altered through association. Now let's compare operant behavior and operant conditioning. Operant behavior refers to any behavior that is controlled by its consequences. These behaviors are voluntary and are emitted by an individual to affect the environment. The frequency and form of operant behavior are influenced by what happens after the behavior occurs, whether it results in something desirable reinforcement or something undesirable punishment. Example: a dog sits on command. This behavior is an operant behavior because it is performed voluntarily by the dog in anticipation of a potential reward, like a treat or praise from the owner. Operant conditioning is the learning process by which the strength and frequency of an operant behavior are influenced through reinforcement or punishment. It involves establishing an association between a behavior and its consequences. This process strengthens or weakens the behavior, making it more or less likely to occur in the future based on the consequences it produces. Example: the same dog learns to sit on command more frequently over time because sitting has been consistently followed by receiving a treat. The process of learning that sitting leads to treats is operant conditioning. The dog's behavior sitting is shaped by the consequences treats it produces. Let's look with example about recycling behavior. Operant behavior: a person decides to start recycling plastic bottles. This decision and action are voluntary, with the person choosing to recycle as part of their routine. Operant conditioning: over time, the person receives positive feedback and perhaps even rewards like a reduction in waste disposal fees for recycling. These consequences reinforce the recycling behavior, making the person more likely to continue recycling in the future. Focus on behavior versus process. Operant behavior focuses on the specific actions an individual takes and the role those actions play in interacting with the environment. Operant conditioning, however, is concerned with the learning process that modifies these behaviors based on the consequences they produce. Behavior versus learning mechanism. Operant behavior is about the actual performance of the behavior itself. Operant conditioning is about how behaviors are acquired, strengthened, or weakened through the application of reinforcements and punishments after those behaviors. Now, let's practice with some mock exams. Mock exam 1. Every time Emma hears the sound of a can opener, her cat comes running into the kitchen. Initially, the cat showed no interest in the sound. But after several instances where the sound preceded her feeding, the cat now responds immediately. What does this scenario best illustrate? 1. Respondent behavior. 2. Respondent conditioning. 3. Operant behavior. 4. Operant conditioning. Correct answer is 2. Respondent conditioning. This scenario illustrates respondent conditioning, where the cat has learned to associate the sound of the can opener, initially a neutral stimulus, with being fed unconditioned stimulus. The sound has become a conditioned stimulus that elicits the cat's response of running to the kitchen. Conditioned response, which is not a behavior controlled by consequences, but by the established stimulus-response association. Mock exam 2. A student begins studying more frequently after noticing that increased study time leads to better grades, which in turn results in praise from his parents and teachers. What does this scenario best illustrate? 1. Respondent behavior. 2. Respondent conditioning. 3. Operant behavior. 4. Operant conditioning. Correct answer is 4. Operant conditioning. This example demonstrates operant conditioning. The student's behavior of studying more. Operant behavior is strengthened by the consequences of better grades and praise reinforcers. This scenario emphasizes how the consequences of the behavior increase the likelihood of the behavior occurring again. Mock exam 3. When Judy smells her favorite food cooking, she immediately feels hungry, even if she has just eaten. This reaction occurs each time she encounters the aroma. What does this scenario best illustrate? 1. Respondent behavior. 2. Respondent conditioning. 3. Operant behavior. 4. Operant conditioning. Correct answer is 1. Respondent behavior. Judy's immediate feeling of hunger upon smelling her favorite food is an example of respondent behavior. This is a natural, reflexive response to a specific stimulus, the smell of food, which does not involve learning through consequences, but is an innate reaction. Mock exam 4. Every time Lisa cleans her room, her parents give her an extra hour of screen after learning that cleaning up toys results in extra playtime before bed. A child starts to clean up without being asked. What does this scenario best illustrate? 1. Respondent behavior. 2. Respondent conditioning. 3. Operant behavior. 4. Operant conditioning. Correct answer is 4. Operant conditioning. This scenario is an example of operant conditioning. The child's behavior of cleaning up toys. Operant behavior is reinforced by the consequence of getting extra playtime positive reinforcement. The child learns to repeat the behavior that results in a favorable outcome, showing how behavior is modified through consequences. Mock Exam 5. Lisa was initially indifferent to classical music. However, after attending several symphony concerts that she thoroughly enjoyed with her friends, she started feeling relaxed every time she heard classical music, even when alone. This change occurred after repeated experiences where the music was associated with a fun, calming evening. What does this scenario best illustrate? 1. Respondent behavior. 2. Respondent conditioning. 3. Operant behavior. 4. Operant conditioning. Correct answer is 2. Respondent conditioning. This scenario exemplifies respondent conditioning. Lisa has learned to associate classical music, initially a neutral stimulus, with enjoyable and relaxing evenings, unconditioned stimuli. Over time, the music alone, now a conditioned stimulus, began to elicit feelings of relaxation conditioned response, even without the presence of her friends. Mock Exam 6. Max learned that whenever he completes his homework on time, he earns an hour of video game time. Motivated by this reward, Max has started to diligently complete his homework as soon as he gets home from school to ensure he gets his gaming time. What does this scenario best illustrate? 1. Respondent behavior. 2. Respondent conditioning. 3. Operant behavior. 4. Operant conditioning. Correct answer is 4. Operant conditioning. This example demonstrates operant conditioning, where Max's behavior of completing his homework is influenced by the consequences gaming time that follow. The reward extra video game time serves as a positive reinforcement, making it more likely that Max will continue this behavior in the future. Mock Exam 7. Whenever Jenna smells peanut butter, she starts to feel nauseous. This reaction developed after she had a bad experience of food poisoning from a peanut butter sandwich. Now, just the smell of peanut butter can trigger her nausea. What does this scenario best illustrate? 1. Respondent behavior. 2. Respondent conditioning. 3. Operant behavior. 4. Operant conditioning. Correct answer is 1. Respondent behavior. Jenna's feeling of nausea in response to the smell of peanut butter is an example of respondent behavior. The nausea is an automatic, involuntary reaction to the stimulus smell of peanut butter, which became a trigger due to her past negative experience. Mock Exam 8. Every time Kevin cleans his room, his parents praise him and sometimes even reward him with extra allowance. Motivated by these outcomes, Kevin has started cleaning his room more frequently, aiming to maintain the tidy space even without reminders. What does this scenario best illustrate? 1. Respondent behavior. 2. Respondent conditioning. 3. Operant behavior. 4. Operant conditioning. Correct answer is 3. Operant behavior. Kevin's action of cleaning his room more frequently due to the positive consequences Praise and extra allowance is an example of operant behavior. This behavior is voluntary and is influenced by the reinforcements provided, which are the outcomes that make the behavior more likely to be repeated. All right, that's all today. Hope you understand better about respondent and operant behavior. If you like this video, please press like button and subscribe channel. Thank you for watching.